the Crimson Tide Sports Network from Learfield. Live from Baumhauer's Victory Grill in Tuscaloosa, this is Hey Coach and the Nick Saban Show.
That's it right there. Good. Stay up, man. Keep the guy off the ground. Let's go.
Presented by Alfa Insurance. For auto, home, and life insurance, call Alfa. Hey Coach and the Nick Saban Show is also brought to you by Bud Light. It's for the fans. Toyota. Visit your local Toyota dealer today. Toyota. Let's go places. Golden Flake, the official potato chip of the Alabama Crimson Tide. Everwood Treatment Company, the official treated lumber of Alabama Athletics. Ford. For great offers on F-150, see your local Ford dealer. Proud sponsor of the Crimson Tide. And by Yellow Hammer Brewing. Brewed locally in Alabama and served to fans across the Southeast. Now, this is Hey Coach.
Welcome, everybody. Another great night in Tuscaloosa, and it is terrific to have you with us here at Baumhauer's Victory Grill for Hey Coach, presented by Alfa Insurance. I'm Chris Stewart, filling in for Eli Gold once again this week. Jim Carabin is our Vice President, General Manager of the Crimson Tide Sports Network. Tom Stipe is our producer, engineer. Jerry Kelly runs the show back in our CTSN studios, and we're so glad to have you with us for our program this evening. Of course, coming up, as usual, 7 o'clock here locally in Tuscaloosa. 30 minutes from now, head coach Nick Saban will be with us talking about this weekend's great matchup between the Tide and the LSU Tigers down in Tiger Stadium. Always exciting when Bama and the purple and gold get together. Looking forward to that one this weekend and our coverage on the Crimson Tide Sports Network. Also, we'll have Nick Kelly of the Tuscaloosa News joining us. He will be our media guest for tonight's program. Nick covers the Bama beat for the T-News, and great to have him join us here on site as well. And very shortly, we'll be talking with Will Palmer. He's the women's distance coach for Dan Waters' staff with Alabama track and cross country. They have had a great run as of late. Some wonderful things happening with that program, and we will fill you in on that in a moment as well. Hey, you can keep up with everything Alabama, not only with this show, but also with the Alabama Crimson Tide mobile app. It's presented by Cadence Bank. It's available at the App Store and at Google Play. Download that Alabama Crimson Tide mobile app right now for free. This is Hey Coach, live from Baumhauer's Victory Grill. It's the official watch party location of the Crimson Tide, and it's here on the Crimson Tide Sports Network from Learfield. Welcome back to Hey Coach. It's presented by Alfa Insurance. And this segment, of Hey Coach is presented by Royal Furniture. Family owned and operated for 75 years, Royal Furniture has locations in Tuscaloosa, Birmingham, Memphis, and Jackson, Tennessee for your shopping convenience. We are pleased to welcome in as we get things started tonight as far as our guest lineup is concerned on Hey Coach, welcoming in the women's distance coach for the Alabama cross country and track and field teams, Coach Will Palmer. Good to see you, and appreciate you pinch hitting for Dan Waters tonight.
Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, it's great anytime we can let somebody talk about their program, but especially when you're coming off championships. And congratulations, the men and women last Friday winning the SEC cross country titles in, again, both the men's and women's side. First time that has been done in Bama history. And it's the first time I think anybody other than Arkansas has done that since 1990. They've had a stranglehold on this for more than a couple of decades, but Alabama cross country and track and field really making its name known as well.
Yeah, no, it's been a while since we've been up there, so we're excited to break Arkansas' streak.
It didn't happen overnight. Talk about how this program has been built to where you could be at a championship level.
Yeah, I mean, ever since Dan has started working here, I think he got here in 2011, 2012.
Right.
This is something we've really been pointing towards, and this is my 5th year here. I don't know, we've just kind of been chipping away at it. And I think the really special thing is that the guys and girls got there at the same time.
Right. Chance to really, truly celebrate that together. There's a lot of training. Please correct me if I'm wrong, but there are certain aspects of training that take place together, does it not?
There's a little bit.
Somewhat?
Yeah, but a lot of the...
I know it doesn't shock you. I'm not a runner, Coach.
Yeah. No, a lot of the hard sessions and stuff are done separately.
Right.
But a lot of times we're out at the same places and we're all at the same meets and stuff. So there's a lot of shared camaraderie, which is unique in our sport. Most sports are separated. Exactly.
That was more of the lines of what I was getting to, and I did say it very well. But you're number one in the region, top 10 nationally for the women. The men also number one in the region, 16th nationally. And tell me what, I know rankings aren't as important as where you finish, and obviously you just won the SEC title, which helps. But what does that do in terms of national prominence for your program? What meaning does that have for you?
I mean, I think it just validates what our kids are doing. One of the goals we have as a program anytime we go to a national meet is to beat our ranking. And that's certainly something the men and women have their sights set on. But to be up in the top 20 on the men's side and the top 10 on the women's side just kind of validates what our kids are doing and what we see every day, and just kind of, I guess, a vote of confidence.
Let's talk about some of your young ladies in what they're doing, the success that they are having as of late, because it's great that you won the title. Mercy, and I'm going to mess up the name, Chalange?
Chalangat.
Roots helped me with that, and I still messed it up. I'm so sorry, but Mercy is what I should have stayed with, and it's the reason I'm going to get you to say the other names yourself. I got no shot if I can't get Mercy's last name right, but they have done some really special things on the women's side.
Yeah, I think the neat thing is, I think Mercy's crossed the line for us twice this year, first on our team, but we've had Hilda that was our number one runner once. We've had Amaris that was our number one runner once. And in cross country especially, we feel like we have a really, really good team when we don't have a batting order, so to speak.
Right.
It just kind of shuffles around, because that means people are picking up slack for each other. And we've got that this year.
In the way your sport works, while it's great to have a front runner, so to speak, it has to be collective, does it not, in order to achieve the type of success you have?
It is, and I think the funny thing about this sport is, we score 1 through 5, and obviously the 5th runner is your slowest runner across the line. They're the ones scoring the most points, and points are bad,
Right, gotcha.
So your person that is running the slowest is almost carrying the most pressure,
Gotcha.
Which is a really unique situation.
Right. And obviously, finishing near the top of the pack, that helps tremendously. So what's next? Walk us through what's next for both the men and the women as you move from the SECs now to national.
Yeah, so we have to make the national meet. So we run at the regional next Friday, and That is, it's a prelim in the sense that, we should be advancing and qualifying, but we can't treat it too much like a prelim, but knock on wood, assuming we qualify,
Right.
we turn around 8 days later and we run again. And it's, the women are pretty used to that. The tough thing for the men is they've been running 8,000 meters, which is 5 miles all season. They're going to step up to 6 miles or 10K at the regional and national. So it's a really tough turnaround for them. So for them to figure out how to meter their energy and not spend too much at the regional is really the name of the game.
I was going to ask you how, with that type of turnaround, where's the line between rest, recovery, and staying sharp?
It pretty much everything we're doing now is geared towards rest and recovery. The winning SECs is hard physically, but it's an emotional high for the kids, and so when they come off of it, they're pretty tired this week. So a lot of what we're doing right now is just kind of the haze in the barn, so to say.
Right. So for your squad, again, with the championships complete, the postseason run starting with the South Regional, you do get to stay in the state of Alabama, which is really awesome. Huntsville, I know, has rolled out the red carpet, so to speak, and this is an NCAA regional event, and they're treating it like championships, as they should.
Yeah, Huntsville's done an amazing job hosting the regional. They have an awesome course. And there are a fair number of places that have great courses, but they've done a really, really top-notch job just rolling out the red carpet and making sure everyone feels welcome. And we like being there. Obviously, we're in the state. The travel is super easy, but I could see it being a place that the NCAA's has hosted in a couple of years.
Awesome. And then the NCAAs themselves in Stillwater, Oklahoma, does, with cross-country, you have different courses, different tracks, so to speak, but from a distance standpoint, the track's the track, right? I mean, there's not a whole lot. I understand climates can be different, altitude, things of that nature can make it a little bit different, but in this standpoint, it's really not wherever you run, it doesn't necessarily matter.
Correct. Yeah, it's all the same distance. So there are nuances with the courses, and some being hilly and some being flat and stuff, but it's all pretty much the same.
Coach, thank you. We appreciate it so much. Great job filling in for Dan Waters. We appreciate it so much. Rookie debut on Hey Coach.
Rookie debut, yeah.
Great job. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Coach Will Palmer, the women's distance coach for the University of Alabama, kind enough to join us here on Hey Coach. We are at Baumhower's Victory Grill. When we come back, we'll be talking more University of Alabama sports. Still to come a little more than 15 minutes from now. Coach Nick Saban with us in about 10 minutes. Nick Kelly from the Tuscaloosa News, our media guest, will be checking in as well. Stay with us right here on Hey Coach. It is, again, presented by Alfa Insurance. And Hey Coach is also where you can dial up Coach Saban a little later at 877-202-BAMA. That's on the Yellowhammer Brewing Hotline. All right here on the Crimson Tide Sports Network from Learfield. Hey Coach, once again presented by Alfa Insurance for auto, home, and life insurance. Call Alfa. Also want to remind you that this is a great place, talking about Baumhauer's Victory Grill, to come and celebrate anything, anytime, but especially celebrate with us 40 years of Baumhauer's Victory Grill. New flavors coming up this fall, including Alabama hot chicken, fajita wraps, and of course, those legendary buffalo wings. Baumhauer's Victory Grill, it's the official watch party location of the Crimson Tide. It's a place for you to watch Coastal Carolina and Appalachian State, one of the college football games going on tonight. I believe you've got Alabama A&M and Mississippi Valley State on one of the other televisions tonight as well. Of course, the screens will be changing as Coach Nick Saban comes rolling in here in about 15 minutes or so to join us from here at Baumhauer's Victory Grill as well. Do want to remind you, though, we are very close to the start of the college basketball season, and it's not just the men, the women as well. A doubleheader coming up on Monday night. We're excited about this at Coleman Coliseum. We had the men's team playing an exhibition game this past Saturday at Foster Auditorium, which was a lot of fun in that legendary facility, but we're moving back to the regular home of Coleman Coliseum this Monday night for the start, the tip-off for the college hoop season. The women begin at 5 o'clock Central, taking on Alabama A&M. The Tide and the Lady Bulldogs meeting at Coleman beginning at 5 o'clock, and then the men taking on Longwood beginning at 7:30. Longwood, a team that's expected to contend for their league title and a spot in the NCAA tournament this year. And, of course, Alabama, a preseason top 20 NCAA Division I program as well, and excited about things for the Crimson Tide men and women this year. So it's the doubleheader on Monday. The Bama women taking on Alabama A&M at 5, and the men taking on Longwood at 7:30. Radio coverage on Crimson Tide Sports Network affiliate stations. And, yes, that is also the night of Crimson Tide Rewind. Both of those programs, really basketball, I should say, for the women and the men, available on CTSN affiliates, as will Crimson Tide Rewind as well. So be sure to check with your local stations, or more importantly, more easily, simply go to the official website of Alabama Athletics. That is rolltide.com. We got more coming up. Stay with us. We continue with Hey Coach in a moment on the Crimson Tide Sports Network from Learfield. This segment of Hey Coach is presented by My Eye Doctor with 20 locations to make your next eye appointment convenient. Don't miss a single play this season. Eye care and eyewear really are better together at My Eye Doctor. Visit myeyedr.com to learn more. Chris Stewart back with you here on Hey Coach. The Nick Saban Show starts in a little more than 10 minutes, and head coach Nick Saban will, of course, be with us at that point. We've got an opportunity now to spotlight our Everwood Treatment Company Performance of the Week. Everwood, the official treated lumber of Alabama athletics. Everwood, wood treated right. The Performance of the Week, something we've really already talked about on our show here this evening, as we were joined by Will Palmer, the women's distance coach for Dan Waters' staff with Alabama track and cross country. But we talked about the Bama men's and women's teams capturing SEC titles this season. The Tide swept the men's and women's crowns for the first time in program history. A great accomplishment. Again, the first time it has been done in the SEC by somebody other than Arkansas since 1990. So a great achievement for Coach Dan Waters, his staff, and the student athletes for the men's and women's programs that have won those crowns. We're happy for them and happy to name them our Everwood Performance of the Week. When we come back, we look forward to visiting with Nick Kelly, beat writer covering the Crimson Tide for the Tuscaloosa News. He will be our CB&S Bank media guest for tonight's show here on the Crimson Tide Sports Network from Learfield. Welcome back, everybody. Great to have you with us as we continue with more of Hey Coach, presented by Alfa Insurance. For auto, home, and life insurance, call Alfa. Always great to visit with our media guest each and every week on the program. And this week, that media guest, presented by CB&S Bank, is Nick Kelly from the Tuscaloosa News, beat writer covering the Tide. Good to see you again.
Good to see you, Chris. Good to be with you.
Yeah, this is second appearance, I think, for you, correct?
Second one for me, so they were willing to have me back. So
again, it's a good thing. Everybody gets invited once, just about.
It's how you do that rookie performance that you find out.
There is no question about that. Tell me what it's been like for you to cover this Alabama beat as somebody who's been around here, stranger to Tuscaloosa certainly, but second year as the beat writer for the Crimson Tide.
I tell you, that second lap, it makes a whole difference.
Sure.
So I've really been enjoying just getting a chance to go around a second time. But I've loved moving to Alabama. I'm from Minnesota, so a long ways from home. But being here in this state, I didn't know what to expect when I accepted the job, jumped down to Alabama, but I've had such a great time and covering this program and this university. I just love the interest and all the fans because more than anything, you want to be able to interact with people who are passionate about what you're covering. And there is no lack of passionate people here who are interested in Alabama football, basketball, and more.
So you're from Minnesota, but you went to school at the University of Missouri, great journalism school there, nationally recognized for that. And you got to cover your alma mater for 3 years at Mizzou, which when you went there, I'm not sure you knew it was going to be an SEC school to cover. I guess it had been by then, but still wasn't thought of really as an SEC school. I'll be honest, I'm not sure many people still now think of it as an SEC school, but it's closer. We feel like it's more family now.
It's on the bubble of that. It's SEC. I enjoyed going on the road for Missouri games because you got to go to some really cool places and maybe a little bit more true SEC experiences. I love my alma mater. It's a great college town, but there's in the SEC and then there's the hardy SEC towns.
Sure.
So it's a little bit of a difference there.
It is, and still, it's an opportunity that it was really cool to cover your alma mater for those 3 years, but then you go to the Boston Globe, the Tampa Bay Times, you work for The Athletic. I mean, you're not old enough to have done all of that, man. But it's quite a resume you built before you made your way back to Tuscaloosa.
I appreciate that. Yeah, I've been really blessed just to have the opportunities I've had. And I got an early start. I started writing about when I was 13 or so, and so I was fortunate that I knew what I wanted to do pretty early on.
Yeah.
And, jumped on that ship, and we've been going ever since.
I know the feeling. I just wish somebody had put me on another boat sometimes, and I'm sure my employers feel that way as well. Sit tight. We're going to get back with you. Our media guest is brought to us by CB&S Bank. Bank anywhere at any time with CB&S Bank's digital solutions. Managing your finances has never been so easy. Do want to remind you, Bama fans, be sure to stop by Innisfree Tuscaloosa Wednesday night for Bud Light specials from 9 to 11 and enter to win a pair of tickets to the Iron Bowl courtesy of Bud Light and the Crimson Tide Sports Network. When we come back, head coach Nick Saban will be with us. First, though, we pause 10 seconds so our local stations can identify themselves to you here on the Crimson Tide Sports Network. Crimson Tide Sports Network from Learfield. Of course you do.
on the Crimson Tide Sports Network from Learfield.
Hey, everybody. Alabama coach Nick Saban here.
This is the Nick Saban Show.
Roll Tide.
Live from Baumhauer's Victory Grill in Tuscaloosa. Presented by Alfa Insurance. For the best agents in the business, call Alfa. Also brought to you by Yellowhammer Brewing. Brewed locally in Alabama and served to fans across the Southeast.
Welcoming everybody to another edition of the Nick Saban Show presented by Alfa Insurance. Jim Carabin is, of course, our boss, the Vice President, General Manager of the Crimson Tide Sports Network. Tom Stipe, our producer engineer on site here at Baumhauer's Victory Grill. Jerry Kelly runs the show in our CTSN studios. And I'm Chris Stewart, filling in for Eli Gold. It's great to have Nick Kelly from the Tuscaloosa News as our media guest tonight, and the man himself has made his way in. Coach Nick Saban, good to see you again, sir.
Good to be here. Hope everybody's doing well tonight.
Yes,
Excited
sir.
about the opportunity that we got coming up.
It's great to have you with us. We talked by phone last week as it was the bye week. I was very careful to say bye week. It's not an off week. There's no such thing during the year, I know, but it was a bye week and a chance for, I guess, everybody to kind of recharge a little bit and rest up and get ready for what is, we hope, a very lengthy back half of the season.
Well, I think, people talk about November all the time and how you finish, but I think that it was really a good time for us to have a little break. We had a significant amount of guys that have been injured. This gave them the opportunity to come back. Injured players that can't practice and still play sometimes start to not play as well as they're capable of. So to get those guys back this week and be able to practice was really important, I think, to the continuity of the team. I think to get Bryce back where he could practice, really was helpful to the offense. He played fairly well the whole time, but there's not the continuity of working together all week in practice. So all those things are really, really good for us. I think psychologically, it's a grind to get through the season. We played 8 straight games, 8 straight weeks. So psychologically, you're always trying to find a way to attach yourself to the right things so that you can go out there and play well. And I think it's good to get a little, break, to have a little downtime from that standpoint. But there was a lot of things that we wanted to accomplish in this bye week, and I was pleased with the work that we got done on future opponents as well as getting a little early start on LSU.
Back on the road this week, obviously, so much discussion I feel like about road games is how do you survive this? How do you handle that? What is the key for not just surviving but thriving in tough road environments?
Well, I think you got to sort of have the mindset that it's a challenge and an opportunity. And you go in thinking, I'm going to try to silence the crowd, not worry about how the crowd affects the game because they really don't block, they really don't tackle, they really don't do anything to affect the game except make noise. So if you play well and you execute well and you can stay focused on what's in front of you, they all of a sudden get quiet. So then they don't have any impact at all on the game. But the key to the drill is you got to stay focused on what's in front of you. You got to execute and play well. Don't worry about the crowd. Don't get them involved in the game by things that you do wrong.
Coach Nick Saban with us here, of course, at Baumhauer's Victory Grill. We always encourage our listeners to be a part of the show on the Yellowhammer Brewing hotline at 877-202-BAMA. But the gentleman that always starts us off with the first question, brought to us by Alabama 811, is Pee Wee down in Grand Bay. Pee Wee, go ahead with Coach.
Hey, Coach, how you doing, sir?
Good, Pee Wee. How are you?
I'm doing well. You're talking about how important the bye week was as far as getting some of our players healthy. If you would, speak of the job that Dr. Jeff Allen and his staff does with some of the equipment that we have for our players to recoup in.
Coach, he was talking about Jeff Allen. It's tough to pick up on the phone there, but Jeff and the job that whole medical staff does in terms of recuperating and getting those guys back.
Well, I think we have probably the best medical staff in the country when it comes to not only Jeff Allen and his staff of trainers and the job they do with our players, but Dr. Andrews, Dr. Kane, and that whole medical group is top shelf, not only in how they take care of the players, even when players need surgeries, the quality of care that they get, not only in the surgery, but also in the rehab.
Right.
All right, which is probably one of the most important things. And sports science has become such a big part of football, athletics. How do you measure guys' explosive movements? How do you measure their speed? How do you measure their ability to sustain? All these things, can really help in keeping guys healthy, but also in helping guys come back from injuries. And our medical staff does a fantastic job. And the most important thing that they have is the trust of the players. That's the thing that I think, if your medical staff does not have the trust of the players, then the players are not going to believe that they can practice sometimes when they're not 100%. And one of the things that we always have to try to convince our college players, college players have the disposition that I shouldn't play unless I'm 100%. But they all want to play in the NFL. NFL players, probably 75% of them play the season, and they're not always 100%. Because there's only 53 guys on the team. I mean, when I was in the league, we played 16 regular season games. We played 4 exhibition games. We played a couple of playoff games. So you're playing 22, 23 games a year if you're on a decent team. And you don't have 85 guys on the team like you do in college. So if you want to keep your job, you got to learn how to play when you're not 100%. And that's one of the things that, we really try to get our players to understand, that we're not trying to get anybody to play ever that it's not in their best interest to play. There's a difference between having a little bit of hurt, a little bit of pain, and actually being injured, where you could, significantly impact yourself if you played by getting injured further. So that's what our medical staff has done a really good job of with our players, is convincing them when they can do things, when they can't do things, and they have a lot of trust in them, and that really helps our program tremendously.
Coach, you talk about their trust in the players' trust in the medical staff, but your trust in them, because it does, as the head coach, I know it falls all back on you, and that's a relationship that is very, very tight between you and Jeff.
Well, there's no question about that, but I also think that in the end of the day, when a player's injured, I always ask the player, can you go out there and do your job? And it's really up to the player. It's even beyond the medical staff. Right. And sometimes when guys are great competitors, they want to go out there and play when they probably shouldn't be playing because they can't do their job the way they need to do it, and it's not going to create value for them, and it's not going to create value for the team. So having a medical staff that can give you the right information so that you can manage players, and the player ultimately has the final say in whether he can go out there and do his job. I always ask the player before the game.
Coach, let's go to the phones again. Let's go to the Yellowhammer Brewing Hotline. Harrison in Florence next up. Go ahead, Harrison.
Good evening, Chris. Coach, it's good to be talking to you again. How are you tonight?
Good, Harrison. How are you?
I'm doing great. I just, if I may, before I ask my question, I just want to say thanks for all that you do for Alabama football. I'm 28 years old, and really the only coach that I ever remember watching was Mike Shula, and we just didn't have much to cheer for in those years, so I want to thank you for what you've done for our program. Also, I want to thank you for having this show every Thursday night, taking your time out in a busy game week to interact and being so accessible to all the fans. This is one of the highlights of my week every week during football season, so I really appreciate you doing that. My question is just real quick. You've talked about some good things during the bye week, getting players healthy, and also some personal things that you want to get done as a coach with future opponents. But my question is, do you see there being any cons to having a bye week in the middle of the season? Like, for instance, if a team is really playing well and they're really getting hot, do you think it can be bad to have a bye week in the middle of the season? I just wanted to hear your thoughts on that. And thanks, Coach, and Roll Tide.
Yeah, well, thank you, Harrison. This is one of the highlights of my week, too, because it's the only time I see any people other than our players and Miss Terry when I get home at like 10 o'clock at night, and the coaches. So I always enjoy this, and I like the opportunity to interact, and I think it's a good way to message some of the things that are important to the program that, fans are interested in, but also have kind of the right to know. So after saying all that, I'll forget what his question was.
I was hanging on everything you were saying. He was talking, is it a negative at all to have a bye week?
Okay, I got it.
If you're winning a bunch.
Yeah. Well, I think if you looked at it this way, like how hard is it to maintain intensity? All right, we have to all do that in our work. You have to do it if you're in competition. You have to maintain intensity, and people understand momentum. You have momentum in a game. Sometimes you have momentum in your business. Sometimes you're doing really, really well and things are rolling along and everything's going well. So the ability to maintain intensity is probably one of the most important things in a game, but also in a season. So to go back to your point, if you're playing really well and your team has got momentum because you are maintaining intensity and you're playing well, sometimes a break may not be the best thing for you. Sometimes when you're a little bit banged up or, maybe you're limping your way through the season, psychologically or physically, a bye week can be a really welcome time for you to heal. So I think, and I've oftentimes said this, and I've said it on the show before, people always assume that a bye week is a good thing, but you never know if it's a good thing or a bad thing until you kind of go through it, see what you get done, see how you improve, see how your players respond to what they need to do to be able to improve, and then how do they play in that next game. And, that's what we're anxious to see, this weekend. Looking forward to it indeed as the Tide takes on the LSU Tigers. We continue with more Hey Coach and the Nick Saban Show coming to you live from Baumhower's Victory Grill. We visit more with the coach right after this on the Crimson Tide Sports Network from Learfield. McClellan in the backfield with Young, who is waiting. 4-3 on the play clock. Gets the snap at 2. Plenty of time. Looking all day. Could read a book. Bounces around now as pressure tries to catch up. Still buying time. Directed traffic. Lines up, throws. Wide open Earl. Touchdown, Alabama. What a play, Bryce Young. JoJo Earl back of the end zone. 30 yards plus on the score, and Alabama gets on the board first. It's another refreshing Bama highlight presented by Yellowhammer Brewing Company. Brewed locally in Alabama and served to fans across the Southeast. So glad to have you back with us here at Baumhower's Victory Grill for the Nick Saban Show. Always great to have an opportunity for Coach to visit with
a lot of you here in the audience at Baumhauer's, and also all of you that join us on the phones as well, and also with our media guests, such as tonight's media guest from the Tuscaloosa News, Nick Kelly. Nick, you got the next question for Coach Saban. Or
well,
Coach,
Nick,
you got one first?
Before you ask me, I wanted to make another point about maintaining intensity. You know, I think if any of you have ever been in competition, you know that you can't always sustain the momentum of the game. And I think that this is a good lesson for all of us. You have to really learn how to recapture it. You know, can you recapture the momentum of the game so that you don't start reeling when things don't go well? And that all goes back to your ability to overcome adversity and be able to sustain things even when things aren't going well for you, and keep positive thoughts in your head about what you need to do so that you can stay focused on the process of things that you need to do to be able to have success. And I think that ability is really, really important when you're in competition. And we talked about playing on the road. You know, you asked me about that. Well, momentum is important, but being able to recapture the momentum when things don't go well. And how many times do you see games where somebody scores and the whole momentum of the game changes and it never ever switches back? But that's what I'm talking about. You got to be able to recapture, you know, that momentum, you know, in a game so that you can sustain and play for 60 minutes. But
I'm going to take us in a completely different direction. I can't usually turn on a TV without seeing at least one commercial with you or Bryce Young in it. I'm just curious, have you guys ever exchanged acting tips?
No.
Next question.
We haven't. And he's got me by a long shot. A, he's better looking. B, he's got a great personality and disposition, I think, for, you know, what he does. And I'm really impressed for a young guy like himself to be able to do that as well as he does is really impressive.
Yeah, from the beginning, even his first press conference, like this guy was like, you know, he seems like he's talked to people in the media for years. I mean, have you seen people this well spoken at such a young age?
Well, I think that Bryce is very bright. He is well spoken, but you know, he's got a great family. Really has really good values in terms of right and wrong. And you know, sometimes people can see and understand things from somebody else's perspective. And I think he does a really good job of that too, which creates an understanding of how to treat other people, I think, in a really positive way. So, yeah, he's got it all when it comes to great personality, positive, upbeat. I don't know. I haven't met the person that doesn't respect him and like him, you know, because he treats everybody so well.
Before we go to our next question from the audience, I've got to go back to your acting history, your acting past. We heard you talk about The Blind Side before, and where you basically told the director, look, I know you got these lines, but can I just talk to them like I would on a recruiting visit? When you did that first, I guess it was Aflac commercial, or one of the first ones, where the girl's going to buy a dress for however much it was.
Oh, that was a Regions commercial.
I'm sorry, forgive me. Young lady, $275 for a dress you're going to wear 2, maybe 3 times tops. I felt like you just went completely off script and you were talking to Kristen all of a sudden. Was that the way that worked?
That's the way it works.
Okay.
That's exactly the way it worked.
That's what I thought.
You took the words right out of my mouth.
No, good deal. Yeah, and again, yeah, I probably am right. That was outstanding. Let's go to the first question from our AL.com thread. It's from Curtis in Anniston. Hey, Coach, I'm curious if the bye week is scheduled more for player recovery as opposed to extra prep time for the upcoming games ahead. Thank you, and roll tide, from Curtis in Anniston.
Right. I think, Curtis, it's a combination of both. I think 2 days off during the season is 10 times better than 1 day. It's not 2 times better, it's 10 times better. So you've heard me say that before. So we give the players off Sunday and Monday, then we practice Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, then we give them off Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So we get 3 good days of work in, but they also get 2 breaks, a 2-day break and a 3-day break. So, and I think at this point of the season, sometimes less is more for players in terms of recovery. So we did get work done against future opponents, but we also got a lot of good rest and recovery, and I think it's been helpful to us.
Good deal. Coach. We got a question from the audience. I know you, but say your name again for Coach and give him your question, please.
Yes, Coach, I'm Rick Edmonds from Brent, Alabama.
Hey, Rick, how are you?
I'm fine, sir. In the run-pass option, be almost eliminated if the lineman could only block after 1 yard like it is in the NFL.
Right. Well, in college, you're allowed to block 3.5 yards. But here's the part of that doesn't get implemented. You're allowed to block 3.5 yards downfield if you engage the player within a yard of the line of scrimmage. But that is not how it gets called. All right, so if you're a guard and you're playing a nose guard and a 5 technique, so there's nobody covering a guard and there's a linebacker on you, people run RPOs and they run up and block the linebacker. Well, just based on the letter of the law, of the rule, you're not supposed to be able to do that. But it's really difficult to officiate the way it is, and that's why RPOs have become such a big part of the game. And RPOs have probably doubled points that are scored by the offense. Between RPOs and being able to block behind the line of scrimmage on passes that are caught, it's supposed to be behind the line of scrimmage, but they give them 1 yard on the other side of the line of scrimmage. So now you got all these zone read street plays, like we call them, where the tight end goes out, they crack the guy that's got the tight end, and he catches the ball in the flat. Not often are those passes caught behind the line of scrimmage, but because of the latitude they give, they make them legal. So the combination of RPOs and being able to block behind the line of scrimmage, those two rule changes have significantly impacted offensive football in college, probably more than anything in a long time. So, and also pace of play. You know, people that really go fast make it really hard on the defense. And I know there's a lot of talk about, since we're talking about the game itself and the administration of the game, you know, there's a lot of talk about the length of the game in college football. You know, when I was in the NFL, there was a lot of research done on how long does the game last, because it's entertainment business. All right, so should it last 3 hours? TV wants it to last a certain amount of time so they know what time they can put the next game on. All right, so some of our games in college last for 4 hours, some of them last for 2 hours and 45 minutes. So that is a big difference, you know, in how long a game lasts. So I know there's a lot of research being done right now on how could we make the game a little bit more consistent in, you know, pace of play, whether it's not stop the clock on first downs, which they don't, maybe stop the clock on an incomplete pass, but as soon as the ball's ready for play, start the clock again, which is the way we do now when you run out of bounds, other than the last few minutes of the half in the game. So there's a lot of research being done on some of these administrative issues in college football, when there's a lot of good people in college that are trying to make the game, you know, a better game and a fairer game for players and fans.
Great stuff, Coach. Let's go to the Yellowhammer Brewing Hotline again. Joe is up in Hartselle, Alabama. Joe, what's your question for Coach?
Well, Chris, just want to congratulate you. You're doing a great job, and of course, we're keeping Eli in our prayers. Coach, I think the last time we played Coach Kelly was 2014 in Miami. I just wonder how his coaching style may have changed since then to now he's coach at LSU.
Yeah, I think we played him one more time. What year was that?
Coach. It was only in the last couple of years, or was it 2020? Yeah. I guess we did.
Yeah,
so.
It was. We played him in 2020 or 2019 in the playoffs out in Dallas, and Coach Kelly is a very, very good coach. Very disciplined team. Team competes well in the game. They do really good things schematically. They're very sound on offense, defense, and special teams. And they do a really good job of executing what they do. I think that's why LSU's team has improved dramatically from the beginning of the season till now, is because you can see his philosophy sort of, you know, taking hold of how the players are responding, the discipline that they play with, how they've improved in their ability to execute what they do on offense. It's not that they changed their scheme. They're just doing a lot better job of executing on a more consistent basis. The quarterback has always played well in his system and his scheme, and Daniels has really improved as the season has gone on. So I have a tremendous amount of respect for Coach Kelly. He's been very successful wherever he's been, and I think he's going to be really successful at LSU as well.
So this is year one for him in this current era of college football at LSU, but how much have things changed as far as taking over a program? He talked about recently this week, as far as the transfer portal helps that transition go easier, but how much have things changed from, for example, since you got here?
Oh, wow. Between transfer portal, name, image, and likeness, those two things are probably the most significant things that have happened in college football in years. The whole idea of having alumni give money to some kind of an organization that can actually create opportunities for name, image, and likeness, whatever you want to call it, that's allowed alumni to get involved in recruiting. So these things are just huge changes in college football that, look at the number of transfers LSU has on their team, Ole Miss has on their team, and how it's impacted their ability to have very good teams this year. And it's done that with other teams too. I just know that because it happens to be the next two teams that we play. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. It's a good thing from their standpoint. It's good management. It's good coaching. It's not doing anything wrong. We took 5 transfers last year. 4 of them are starters. But we lost 8 guys, and they were all some of the best backup players that we had on our team, and they were all older players that had been in the program for a long time, that set a good example. They were good leaders, and they were good players. And how it affected our team is the depth of our team changed, I think, a little bit, because in certain positions we lost some really good players that may have not have been starters, but they were really, really good contributors in a lot of ways to our team.
Coach, we'll take another break right now. We'll come back. We'll get another AL.com Ask the Coach question, more from the audience, and also more from you on the Yellowhammer Brewing Hotline at 877-202-BAMA. We are at Baumhower's Victory Grill for Hey Coach and the Nick Saban Show on the Crimson Tide Sports Network from Learfield.
Pistol will hand it off left side to Gibbs. He'll run right side. 15, 10, 5. Touchdown, Alabama. Jahmyr Gibbs. 19 yards, and the Crimson Tide has a 13-0 lead.
Welcome back into the Nick Saban Show. It's brought to you by Coca-Cola Zero Sugar. With zero sugar and refreshingly delicious, is Coca-Cola Zero Sugar the best Coke ever? We'll find out for yourself. Coach, we're going to go to our second question from the Nick Saban Show thread at AL.com. It's from Derek in Atlanta, Georgia. And Derek says, hey, Coach, how has LSU quarterback Jaden Daniels improved as the season has progressed? He seems like more of a running threat than the Tennessee quarterback. Thank you, and roll tide. Again, that's from Derek in Atlanta.
Yeah, Eric, I think you make a really good point. Dual threat quarterback in every way, shape that you could imagine. He's not as big as the guy from Tennessee, but he's really, really fast. He's quick. He can dead leg you and accelerate. He uses ball fakes. I mean, he's to get guys off balance, and so the guy's a really good runner. He's actually the leading rusher on their team. Now, they have 3 running backs that all have contributed significantly, so that's a little misleading, but the guy is a really good passer, and I think that's where he's improved a lot, is the accuracy, the understanding of the offense, throwing the ball to the right place, getting more in sync with the receivers, and they have really good receivers on their team too. So this is a very skilled team, and he's added a tremendous amount to this team with his diversity as a player. And, you know, they have quarterback runs, so it's not just that he can scramble, he can extend plays. This guy can sit in the pocket and throw it and beat you, and he doesn't look to take off running every time it's a pass. He's looking to make plays in the passing game, and he does a good job of it. But they do have quarterback runs that make the rest of their running game very effective.
Dual threat used to be unique, but it's more the rule than the exception now, isn't it, Coach?
Yeah, and it's very hard to defend. I mean, it really is, because there's another gap on defense that you have to defend every time they run a zone play with a slider. Most teams, that's it. Well, they run, this guy comes on out here, he pulls the ball, and they've got a blocker, so you're really playing like option football all of a sudden. And then they have passes off of that action. So it makes it much more difficult for the defense, and everybody has got to play a responsibility, just like, you know, a lot of us out there that played option football back in the day when people ran the split back veer. Somebody had to dive, somebody had to quarterback, somebody had to pitch. This is very similar to that. It just doesn't look that way to the naked eye, because it looks like a zone. I call them street plays, where the guy comes across the street, all right, to go out in the flat on this side from the other side. I can do it same side too. So, but anyway, it's another element that creates a lot of issues for you on defense.
Coach, let's go back to the Yellowhammer Brewing Hotline. Adam is in Milledgeville, Georgia. Good evening, Adam. What's your question for Coach?
Hi, Coach. Thanks so much for taking my question. I'm a college professor in Georgia, and I am the coach of our university's trial advocacy team. And I work really hard to motivate my students and push my students to be the best they can be and to have the greatest chance to be successful at the competitions in which we compete. Sometimes I worry, however, that I'm pushing them too hard to the extent that it's counterproductive and ultimately discouraging to the students. So my question, the advice I'm seeking from you is, how do you identify the line between motivating and pushing people to be their best and not overdoing it to the point where it's counterproductive?
Yeah, well, that's a good question. And if we had the secret to that recipe, you know, we'd all be better off, I think. But I, first of all, want to commend you for being committed as a teacher, right, to trying to help your students have a better chance to be successful in life, because I think that's really important for all of us. And, you know, I think that there's a couple things. You know, getting these young people to attach to the right things is because they have so many more options than what we had growing up or what people have had in the past. I mean, they can attach themselves to the internet, so now they're totally affected by what other people think about whatever the situation is, or maybe they get self-gratification from what people think of them. They can, you know, get attached to ESPN and what people say on ESPN or what they say on the news, whether it's Fox or CNN or whatever it is. So there's so many things that these young people can get attached to. And I think it affects their ability to have goals and aspirations of their own and to get self-esteem from themselves in terms of what they accomplish and what they do. So the whole concept of getting them to be the best they can be is almost foreign to them because they're wanting to be the best based on what somebody else might think, not necessarily what they think of themselves. And I think that's really, really important that, so what we try to do, to answer the other part of your question, is get people to make actual commitments to goals and aspirations of things that they want to do, and then try to get them to edit their behavior to be able to do it, and actually confront them when you see them do things that isn't actually contributing to their ability to accomplish the very things that they say they want to accomplish. So I think it's more important to make it about them, not about what you want for them, but what they want for themselves. Get them to identify what it is they want for themselves, and then get them to try to commit, and you to, as a teacher, to show them, hey, this kind of behavior is not going to help you accomplish what you told me you wanted to accomplish. So I think making it about them is something that can help them see the light and be motivated to try to accomplish things that they want to accomplish, not necessarily what you want to accomplish for them, but what they want to accomplish.
Coach, gentleman right here in the front who's a Bears fan. I'm going to hope he's a Bama fan too. Go ahead, sir.
How you doing, Coach? How you feel today, man?
I feel good. How about you?
Well, I just want to know, okay, what would you compare the difference between playing LSU and here in Tuscaloosa and playing on the road in Baton Rouge? How would you call it? How would you see it is different?
Oh, it's a lot different when you play at home and when you play on the road. But I think it's how you look at playing on the road. You know, playing on the road is a challenge. And, you know, you shouldn't look at it as a negative. You should look at it as a positive. I think the sense of accomplishment that you get when you can have success in adverse circumstances, which the other crowd can create to some degree, make it harder for you to play, make it harder for you to stay focused, make it harder for you to execute, especially on offense, make it harder for you to, the very thing that I talked about before, maintain intensity in the game, recapture momentum when things don't go well, which when you play at home, your fans can actually help you do all those things. All right, so it's a much more, from a competitive standpoint, it takes a lot more mental toughness, mental discipline, and a lot more mature competitor to be able to play well in adverse circumstances on the road and have the ability to overcome adversity, recapture that momentum that I was talking about, and sustain it for 60 minutes in a game. And you take the crowd out of the game by your performance. So your ability to stay focused on what you do on the field becomes very important as well.
Thank you for the question. Nick, you got another one for Coach?
I've got a practice question for you. You've been part of no shortage of practices over your career. Do you have a favorite drill? Or what's the drill that gets you the most fired up?
The drill that gets me most fired up. Oh, boy. That's a good one. Well, there's so many techniques that you try to teach players, but you can take any aspect of it. And one of the things that has been the most challenging for us this year is we do turnover drills to start practice every day. You know, how do you tomahawk the ball when you're trying to tackle somebody so you create a fumble? How do you punch the ball out the back when, like we do stumble bum? When a guy's hand goes down, his elbow usually comes out. You see it on TV all the time when guys fumble and get stripped. All right, so when the elbow comes out, you can punch the ball out the back. If the elbow stays tight, you can pull it down from the front. All right, so just teaching players how to do that and then put them in drills where they have a chance to do it. And then it's frustrating when you try to teach all these things and you don't actually see it happen in a game like you want it to happen. But that's one of the things. And then it's the same thing with the offensive player. How do you properly carry the ball so that you don't fumble, so that you're not what I call a ball violator in terms of, you know, how you swing the ball around. Like when Kool-Aid fumbled on the punt return where he took it back like 40 yards or whatever, ball was swinging. Ball was swinging out here, man. When they hit the top of the ball, the tip is coming out, it's a fumble. All right, so all those things are things you teach, but it's a little bit unnatural to carry the football like you need to carry it so you don't fumble. So it's something that players really have to learn how to do.
Coach, more than 20 years ago, before I started doing Alabama basketball play-by-play. I did Birmingham Southern. They had a great coach, great guy, dear friend named Dwayne Rebold, who was really, really good. Won 2 NAIA national championships as a coach. Detail-oriented. Teams did very well in games, obviously. But he hated games. He loved practice, but he hated games. Back to your conversation about drills. Do you enjoy games or practice more?
Oh, I love practice. I mean, practice is because you're teaching. The game is more of a culmination of what you tried to install and what you tried to teach, and see how well the players actually responded to it, can do it, can execute it in a game, take advantage of situations in a game. So the game's great competition, and competition is exciting, it's fun, it's challenging, but I really like practice. I really look forward to meeting with the players every day, going over stuff with them that they need to learn, adjustments that we need to make. So I really like it. Now, I've heard coaches before say that this would be the greatest profession in the world if you never had to play a game. I'm not in that camp. I don't know if I could just practice all the time and never play a game.
School's fun if there's no test, right?
I don't
That's
think
where it
I
works.
could do that.
Great. Fantastic. We got more. We'll come back and finish up with Coach Nick Saban right after this here on the Crimson Tide Sports Network from Learfield.
Down to 3 on the clock, 2 on the play clock, 1, they get the snap off, they throw, and it is batted away, and incomplete, and Bama takes over on downs.
This is the Nick Saban Show presented by Alfa Insurance. For auto, home, and life insurance, call Alfa. Chris Stewart filling in for Eli Gold. Nick Kelly of the Tuscaloosa News has been our media guest throughout the course of the show, and in just a second he'll have one final question for Coach Nick Saban, who is always generous and gracious, visiting with fans, signing some autographs, and also taking a lot of calls on the show tonight, and also from our AL.com Ask the Coach thread here on the Nick Saban Show. But Nick Kelly with one more for Coach Saban on the night.
Yeah, last night, your Wednesday press conference, you mentioned Jason Taylor, his name came up. You coached in Miami. Now you get to coach against his son, who's a freshman on LSU's team. Is that strange, or what is that like for you?
Well, I coached. I'm getting to the point where there's a lot of guys like Mark Ingram was probably one of the first guys that I coached his dad and ended up coaching Mark here. So I like coaching when they're on my team better than when they're on somebody else's team. And we actually tried to recruit, Jason's son here. And LSU did a good job. They got on him early, and he's going to be a really good player. He's a really good receiver. He runs well. He catches well. Really good player as a tight end.
I had a question. It's not from the audience. It's from the guy over here to the left. Tom Stipe takes care of dinner on the road for us, making sure he picks the spot. Recommendation in Baton Rouge still.
Oh, you have to ask Miss Terry
Okay.
that. I mean,
all right.
I
don't mean this week. I just meant, in the past. Because she picked those anyway, didn't she?
There was only one place I ever went to eat there, right? I mean, in Baton Rouge. We never went out to eat. She's saying, where did we go?
Yeah.
Because we never went out. So, I mean, there's only one place that we go in this town, and that's not very often.
Yeah, I understand. It's kind of difficult for you to go out. I understand.
Not really, but I mean, it's just, I don't know. I enjoy going home.
You don't get to do that very often either. Coach, I don't know if you get the final word at home, but you get it here every Thursday night, and the final word is presented by Mercedes-Benz.
Well, you've heard me say this before, nobody got created a winner, nobody got created a loser. I think we all got created choosers. So if we can attach ourselves to the right things and keep choosing the right things as a team, everybody buys into doing all the things they need to do to be the best player they can, to be the best team player they can, to support each other as a team. I think that's the kind of effort that we're going to need here down the stretch from our team, and I think we're certainly capable of doing that. And, we're doing everything we can as coaches, and I know the fans have been great for us all year long, and anybody that goes to Baton Rouge will need all the help we can get, so we always appreciate that little section right where we come out down there and how you support us and how you help us. But our players have done a good job this week, and it's a big challenge for us. And this is what you find out. This is when you find out what you're all about. All right, when you're playing games like this on the road, and this is going to be. I'm excited about it. I'm excited for the opportunity our team has, and we're going to go for it. So playing against a good team, so it's great.
Coach, always appreciate the time. Wonderful to see you. Best of luck this weekend, and we will see you next week here on the show.
All right, thank you so much. I appreciate you.
Appreciate you. Coach Nick Saban. And our program presented by Alfa Insurance. Protect your cars, home, life, and business with Alfa. Get a quote or find a local agent at alfainsurance.com. We're back with just a little bit more in a moment here on the Crimson Tide Sports Network from Learfield.